Moomin Rider was now giving me a real fight thanks to all his training and riding a bike really fast every day, and the fight announcer said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing a real fight today against real S-class heroes. This is their true strength." And then I said I don't need my powers or my transformations, I just need to stop holding back my body a bit, and then my powers and my body began to slowly bulk up and I started using Drish Shastra, and then Moomin Rider couldn't touch me anymore, and I said, "You are doing great, kid, but you need to learn martial arts." And I started showing him the movements of Drish Shastra slowly, and everyone tried to watch it and everyone was amazed by this very unique fighting style. And the fight announcer said, "Ladies and gentlemen, what you are seeing now is the perfect form of Drish Shastra." And I started to defeat Moomin Rider with great ease, but he was watching every one of my moves trying to adapt on the fly, and I said, "Come to my dojo, kid, because I have some things I need to finish teaching you." And then I used a feint to knock him out, and then next Chosen fought a martial artist I didn't really know and he defeated him easily, and he glared at me and I smirked. In my human form I stand 7'2" and I'm big and muscular just like my mother. And then Chosen said, "Give me a microphone," and he started talking about how he's been bred to be the perfect human, and he said, "I challenge you, Lionheart," and I waved him off and I said, "Wait your turn, little boy." And then Chosen said, "You're a hero, right? So what if I threatened to hurt someone?" And then he grabbed a beautiful woman, and then I got serious, and then I appeared behind him and I grabbed his arm, and I was already transformed into my true lion form, and I said, "Let the girl go or I break your spine and your arm." And then he let her go, and then I rushed her back to her seat, and then I said, "There, ma'am, you're safe now." And she smiled and waved, and she even blushed as I smiled warmly, and now I was towering above him looking down on him, and Chose looked unmoved and he wasn't intimidated. And then I roared and I growled and he didn't flinch, and I said, "Interesting." And then I laughed and said, "You know, most people would be very scared of me in this form because this is my true power." And he said, "Well, I'm different. I was taught not to fear a monster like you." And I said, "You're only a monster if you act like a monster in my book, and after what you just did I would say you're a worse monster than me." And Chose said, "I was just trying to lure you down here." And then he lunged at me with a punch, and then I punched him and I knocked him out and into a wall, and he couldn't continue in the tournament after that. And I said, "I don't like him, he's a bad guy." And then Bakuzan looked at me and glared and he said, "Interesting, so he's a type of monster hybrid." And I appeared behind Bakuzan and I said, "Bakuzan, master of the dark hell assassination art, I heard of you people say you're ruthless and you like to injure people in the ring. I'm Lionheart, pleased to meet you." And I didn't shake his hand or anything, I didn't even try to, because I don't respect him. He has no honor and he likes hurting people too much, and I already knew what was going to happen today. I'm going to have to kill Bakuzan in this ring today along with Guketsu. And I said, "Damn, I wished I didn't knock out Moomin Rider." And then next Lin Lin fought someone else and she won, and then I saw Sour Face win against someone showing true sportsmanship, and I saw Dad fight some big sumo wrestling guy, and I said, "Dad really needs to stop letting people hit him like that." And I said, "Dad, you need to dodge, stop just standing there." And he said, "I'm not. I'm fighting back." And I said, "No, you're not, you're letting him hit you, start dodging." And he said, "But they can't hurt me." And I said, "No, they probably can't, but someone like me could now start dodging." And then he said, "Okay, damn it, fine." And then he started dodging like a real fighter, and then he barely punched the sumo wrestler and he flying into a wall. And then next Bakuzan fought a martial artist that always loses, and then after that Suiryu fought Lightning Max and Suiryu beat him easily. And then Suiryu looked at me and smirked, and I said, "Cocky little prick, I will have to bring him down a notch." And then after that match against Bakuzan and my father Saitama took place, and my dad easily defeated Bakuzan. And then up next Suiryu fought Shiranko, and Shiranko did his best to win, and the match even looked like a real fight for a little bit. After that Garo was one of the last fighters, was about to fight me, and then he said, "These damn bastards. I can't beat my master yet, and I think they know that." And he said, "Please try not to knock me out, master." And I said, "I will try not to." And then Garo started trying his best to fight me with Drish Shastra, and I said, "Impressive, you're getting there, kid, but it's not perfect yet because I don't just know one martial arts." And then I powered up my base form ki a bit.